Have you ever met someone and just knew they were the one? Have you ever been pitted against the said person in the biggest culinary brawl of the state of Michigan has ever seen? No? Then you might have to stick around for this one. It all started with my little sister, Rosario Ramirez. After graduating at the top of her class at the Culinary Institute of New York, she somehow defied the odds and landed herself a spot in one of the most prestigious cooking competitions in the country, the Ultimate Recipe Challenge. Before the competition, Rosario was struggling to find her footing, and she was certain winning this contest would be the boost she needed to get her culinary career off the ground, seeing as the prize money was $50,000 and a personalized cooking show. As her brother and biggest supporter, I traveled all the way from New York to Michigan to cheer her on. Once I got into town, I tried reaching out to Rosa to figure out if she was here yet, and if we could room together because the hotel prices in town were unbelievable. Believe it or not, I was conservative at heart. As a kid, my abuela would call me stingy, but now she knows better, seeing as I presently foot the bills for the elderly home she is presently in. Anyways, with Rosa being AWOL, I had to do the unthinkable. I had to get an overly pricey room at one of the hotels not too far from the venue to avoid the notorious Detroit traffic jams. After checking into the hotel, I decided to go to a nearby bar to unwind. I felt a little nervous and excited about Rosa's competition, which was starting the next day. I wanted to relax and maybe meet some new people, so I did what any normal person would. I walked into the nearest bar that I could find, and believe me, I was not disappointed. The bar was called The Last Drop. I ordered a beer and noticed a man staring at me. He was sitting by the window with a wine glass in his hand. He was wearing a black suit and a blue tie, looking classy and handsome. He had dark hair, a stubble, and blue eyes that drew me in. He was the most attractive man I had ever seen, and he wanted me. I had a weakness for older, professional men, and he ticked all those boxes. I felt a connection with him, a spark. I wanted to know him, to touch him, to kiss him. He was the one. I was sure. He smiled and invited me to his table. I nodded and walked towards him. "Hi, I'm Gabriel Ramirez," I said, sitting across from him.
"Hi, I'm Adrian."
He smiled, smiling like he had hit the jackpot. I was speechless. He was mesmerizing. He finished his wine and said,
"I'm sorry to bother you, Gabriel. You must be uncomfortable."
"Gabe," I blurted out.
"Excuse me?"
He looked puzzled. "Gabe. You can call me Gabe," I stuttered. He laughed and said,
"You're not from around here, are you?"
I sighed and said, "No, I'm here for my sister."
"Oh, you have a sister?"
he asked, signaling to the waiter for more wine. I began to feel a lot more comfortable talking about anything other than myself. "Yeah, her name is Rosa, and she's one of the contestants on the Ultimate Recipe Challenge."
"Really? That's interesting. I'm also here for the competition, but as a judge."
Adrian said with that charming smile of his that made my heart melt. I was surprised he was a judge. Does that mean he was also a chef of some kind? I asked him, and his reply did not disappoint.
"Well, I grew up in a family of food enthusiasts, so I learned to cook from a young age, but I never pursued it as a career. I chose to write about food instead. I've got a blog and podcast. You might have heard of it, Spoons with Bennette."
My eyes widened in disbelief. Spoons with Bennette was amazing. Before I could begin fawning over him, Adrian steered the conversation away from himself.
"So, tell me, Gabe, what kind of food do you cook?"
he asked pointedly. Something about the way he said Gabe made me shiver. I wanted to tackle him from where I was and kiss the hell out of him, but I was nothing if not patient. I told him all about my food truck franchise and how I love to mix and match flavors, and he was genuinely impressed, despite being a transitionalist when it came to food recipes. Adrian suddenly moved closer, and my breath hitched. He was practically leaning over the table at this point, and I had to ask, is there a problem?" He snapped out of it as though he was under some sort of trance.
I'm sorry. It must be the wine talking, but your eyes, they're a really beautiful shade of brown."
I couldn't fight back the blush that stained my cheeks. That right there was a prime opportunity for me to flirt back. but my brain was still holding out on me, so I did the only thing that came to mind. I pointed at his glass and asked him if his wine was any good. Adrian laughed out loud and asked,
My Merlot? It's amazing. Would you like a taste?
I didn't see his question coming, so I was caught off guard. He bridged the gap between us once again, till our noses were almost touching. My eyes darted around the room to make sure no one was watching, and the truth was that nobody really cared. I distinctly remember him asking in a low and husky tone,
Do you want to taste it?
I didn't verbally reply. I just slightly nodded my head, and Adrian did the rest. Slowly, he closed the gap between us, his eyes never leaving mine, till our lips gently met. I just sat there like a deer caught in headlights as he kissed me. It felt electric, and for one moment, I could have sworn my entire body had shut down. But one thing was certain. I did taste the Merlot. Despite losing touch with my motor functions, I could easily taste the smoky flavor of the wine and its spices all over his lips.
Oh my God, Gabe. I must apologize. I'm a little in my cups.
Adrian apologized as we pulled apart. Before I knew it, I reached over the table and grabbed him, kissing him quite passionately. It wasn't my proudest of moments, but I enjoyed it quite much. Unfortunately, the cheering and whistling from across the room snapped me out of it. The other bargoers were cheering as though we were a newly wedded couple that had just thrown the bouquet to the bridesmaid train. It was a tad embarrassing, to be honest. Adrian looked at his wristwatch and frowned.
I'm afraid I'm going to have to cut this short, Gabe. I've got a screen test in 10 minutes.
As he got up to leave, I was still shocked by the kiss. Now that I think of it, I should have taken his number, or at least said goodbye to him. Sadly, I didn't register his absence until the bar door swung shut. As I struggled to go to bed that night, a big part of me thought that I would never see Adrian again, and I had no one but myself to blame. I was hooked on Adrian after our first encounter at the bar. He was smart, funny, charming, handsome, and a food lover. He was my dream man, but I didn't know if I would ever see him again. Fate had other ideas, though. We kept bumping into each other at the bar, but always at the wrong time. He was either leaving or busy with his crew. It was frustrating, but we always managed to exchange some words, smiles, winks, or touches. We had a connection. I could feel it. I wanted to ask him out, but I was scared. What if he rejected me? What if he was toying with me? What if he had someone else? I had doubts and fears, but I also had a strong desire for him. I decided to risk it and go for it. One night, I saw him at the bar, alone with a wine glass. He looked amazing in a navy blue suit and a white shirt. I gathered my courage and approached him. "Hi, Adrian," I said casually. He smiled and said,
Hey, Gabe. Nice to see you here.
I laughed nervously. Yeah, what a coincidence, huh? We both chuckled at the inside joke. He invited me to sit next to him.
Can I buy you a drink?
I nodded and said, Sure, thanks. I'll have a beer. He ordered a beer for me and looked at me with sparkling eyes.
So, Gabe, what brings you to this place?
I shrugged. Anxiety. I'm excited for Rosa, but also nervous. She's worked so hard for this, and I want her to win. He nodded sympathetically.
I get it, but I was hoping for a more personal answer,
he said, tracing his glass with his finger. I looked at him curiously. Oh? He smiled mysteriously.
Yeah, really.
I leaned closer to him. Well, honestly, I met a cute guy here some nights ago, but he left suddenly, and I don't know if he wants to see me again. What do you think I should do? He shook his head.
That's a tough one, but I think you should follow your heart in these situations.
I sighed. That was not very helpful. I realized I had to be direct with Adrian, or I would lose him. I leaned even closer to him. Thanks for the advice, Adrian, but can I ask you one more thing? He raised his eyebrows.
Sure. What is it?
I took a deep breath and said, Will you go out with me? He looked surprised, but also pleased. He smiled warmly and said,
Yes, Gabe, I will.
Really? You will? I asked in disbelief. He nodded.
Yes, really, I will. I've been wanting to at least get your number, but with the contest and all, I couldn't bring myself to make first contact.
I laughed. Are you kidding me? I wouldn't hold it against you if Rosa doesn't win. Neither would I ask for preferential treatment for her. He blushed.
Thanks, Gabe. I really need to hear that.
Adrian reached for my hand and squeezed it gently.
So, when do you want to go out?
I thought for a moment. How about tomorrow night? It's the night before the competition. I think it'd be fitting. Adrian nodded.
That sounds perfect. Tomorrow night, then. It's a date.
I smiled and squeezed his hand back. It's a date. We finished our drinks and then walked out of the bar together. He had another screen test he needed to be present for. Right before he got into his taxi, he pulled me in close to him, and I was more than prepared to be kissed on the lips again. But he expertly transitioned into a kiss on my cheek. He whispered in my ear,
"Good night, Gabe. I'll see you tomorrow."
I couldn't help but smile and whisper back, "I can't wait." Adrian called me and said he had picked a place for our date. I was surprised, but I agreed. He texted me the address and I took a taxi there. It was a large and modern building with a sign that said Spoons with Bennette. I realized he had invited me to a studio where he filmed his shows. I took the elevator to the top floor where he was waiting for me. He looked gorgeous in a black shirt and jeans, holding a wine bottle. He hugged me warmly and said,
"Hey, Gabe, I'm so happy you're here."
"Me too," I replied, excited. He took my hand and led me to a door. He opened it and said,
"This is my studio. This is where I make my videos and podcasts. I wanted to make your trip unforgettable."
I nodded, impressed by the studio. "You have a beautiful studio," I said. He smiled and said,
"Thank you. I'm glad you like it. And,"
he said, dragging out the word,
"I'm going to cook for you tonight."
I was stunned. No one had ever cooked for me before, except my mom and sister. I was a chef after all. I was thrilled and curious about his plan. He walked me to the kitchen and asked me to sit down. He said,
"I mastered a steak recipe, so I'll make you a traditional steak meal. I hope you like it."
"I love it. Thank you, Adrian," I said, sitting down. He put on his apron and kissed me on the cheek.
"Now, Gabe, watch and learn from a master critic in the kitchen."
He was a master indeed. He made everything look easy. He seasoned the steak, seared it, and baked it. He made a sauce from butter, garlic, rosemary, and wine. He roasted some potatoes and carrots and made some salad. He explained everything to me like I was his audience. But I was more than that, and he didn't know it. He finished cooking and played the food. He brought it to the table and said,
"Voila, a traditional steak meal for you, my dear Gabe. Enjoy."
The food looked and smelled delicious. I couldn't wait to taste it. "Wow, Adrian, this is incredible. You're not all talk, are you?" He grinned and said,
"Oh, you have no idea."
He got his own plate and sat next to me, holding my hands.
"Gabe, ever since I kissed you at the bar, you're all I think about. I really like you."
I blushed, feeling the heat in the room. I bet you say that to all the boys from out of town." Adrian chuckled.
"Not necessarily. I only say it to the ones I really like."
He leaned in, kissed me softly, and then murmured into my lips,
"Don't worry, Gabe. I'll break down all of your doubts, one by one."
We made out for what felt like hours, but in reality was roughly 5 minutes, and then we sat down to eat. His homemade steak was amazing, and so was he. We talked and laughed over the silliest of things, and by the time dinner was done, he took me to the top floor, which had a beautiful view of the city skyline. After our magical dinner together, Adrian offered to drive me home, and believe it or not, we realized we were both staying at the same hotel. Adrian asked if I wanted to come in for some Merlot. He told me that he would get super nervous on the nights before shows of this magnitude, and a few glasses always helped him calm down. Knowing him, he probably did have some more wine in his room, but I was more than certain that this had nothing to do with his anxiety or drinking habits. I was proven right when I accepted his invitation and we did everything but drink wine. Adrian was fierce and gentle all at the same time. He was a very passionate man who wasn't afraid to show all of himself to me. Adrian was by far the best I had been with, intimately speaking. After a few hours of exploring each other's bodies, we finally settled into a loose cuddle as we both tried to make each other feel as safe as we could.
I don't know how to say this without making it sound weird, Gabe, but there's something about you.
Adrian said as he traced small circles on my back. I completely understood what he meant, but I was inclined to let him finish. I'm listening. I doubt there's anything you could say that'd ruin tonight, or make it weird, I assured. I watched Adrian struggle with himself for a few more seconds before he finally spoke up.
The truth is, I haven't been this happy in a long time. I haven't allowed myself to be. I have a lot to prove to a whole lot of people, so work naturally always comes first for me.
When was your last relationship? I asked not so subtly.
3 years ago.
Adrian sighed, and it was obvious it wasn't a fond memory for him. Things ended badly? I continued to probe.
He was sent by an opposing business to spy on myself and my franchise. He confessed at the end of things when the damage had already been done.
Damn, that's rough, Adrian. I think you just need a win, I said as I maneuvered to wrap him in a hug. Adrian smiled and hugged me back with just as much fervor and said,
You're the win, Gabe.
Now that I didn't see coming, and so I had to ask, What do you mean? He rubbed the back of his hair, looking sheepish. It was incredibly cute, and the first time I had seen him like this.
I really like you, Gabe. I don't want this to be a one-time thing. I don't want us to be two strangers who just had sex. I really want to get to know you.
Adrian said, but twiddling his thumbs. If his bedroom wasn't so dark, Adrian would have borne witness to how a monumental blush lit up my entire face. I didn't want to be forward, but I'd really like that. You make me feel so safe. Which is strange because we only just met. Adrian leaned in and kissed me again, as though to seal the deal. Then he suddenly remembered.
I've got just the thing,
he said as he dashed out of bed in a hurry. True to his word, he busted out a bottle of Merlot from his cabinet and poured us both glassfuls. I was looking forward to properly tasting the rich wine, but right before I could dig in, my phone rang. Rosa, what's up? I heard her voice on the phone. I moved away from Adrian to answer. Where are you? I couldn't reach you, and I had to book a hotel. My heart sank. Abuela was our only family left. I wanted to be with Rosa and comfort her. I'm coming back to... I was shocked. I couldn't cook on live TV. I was a food truck guy, not a star chef. She sounded desperate. I couldn't say no to her. I never could. It was a weakness. Okay, fine, I'll do it. She thanked me and asked for my address. She said her handler would pick me up tomorrow. Adrian was silent the whole time. He looked away when I hung up. Sorry, that was my sister.
You're a contestant tomorrow?
He interrupted me. Yeah, crazy, right? He cursed and covered his face.
You have to go now,
he said quietly. What? Why? He glared at me.
I'm the judge, the only judge. Everyone saw us at the bar and here. How do you think that looks?
I tried to calm him down. It's okay. It's not a big deal. He threw my clothes at me. He was clenching his jaw as if something itched him internally.
There's a twist. You're all competing against me. Get out.
I realized how bad this was. I had to leave. But I kissed him first, to thank him for the best night ever. He kissed me back. For a moment, I hoped we could make it work, but then he said,
We can't see each other, Gabe.
He looked down. I opened my mouth to speak, but Adrian beat me to it.
I really like you, Gabe, but please, there's too much at stake. Don't make it more difficult than it already is.
I couldn't believe it. I opened my mouth and closed it several times over, trying to say something, anything that sort this mess out. But it didn't look like Adrian would budge, especially not after his experience with his ex. There really was too much at stake for him. Adrian was in a tight spot, and I understood him completely. I didn't say anything else. I slid out his window and climbed up the fire escape back to my room. I was rudely awakened by a knock on my door at 6 a.m. It was Lucinda, Rosa's talent manager, who barged into my room with bags of clothes, makeup, and accessories. She said she was here to make me look good for the show. She ordered me to shower, shave, and dress in the outfit she picked for me. It was a pair of jeans, a t-shirt, a leather jacket, and some boots. I did as she said, and then she did my hair and makeup. She was fast and efficient, and she made me look like a star. She praised her work and thanked me for being cooperative. Thanked her back, genuinely impressed by her skills. She called a cab and we left for the show. On the way, I couldn't stop thinking about Adrian. I missed him so much. We had a wonderful night together, but he rejected me in the end. He said he couldn't be with me because of the competition. He said he was sorry, but it didn't matter. He pretty much broke my heart. Reality TV was a bloody nightmare. I learned that the hard way. The moment I arrived, the slaughter began. 10 cooks had to make pelmeni in half the time, a Russian dish of meat-filled dumplings. It took hours to make them right. They had minutes. They all failed. Adrian was ruthless. He wanted to kill us all. 2 more groups of 10 crashed and burned. Only a few made it. Their tasks were just as insane. Some had to make sushi with live fish. Others had to bake a cake with no oven. I was next. I was scared shitless. What would he make me do? I didn't have to wait long to find out. Eventually, it was my turn. The final group of 10, and all hell broke loose. Adrian took center stage, and like he had been all morning, I couldn't find the warmth in his eyes. The rare instances where he did lock eyes with me, it was as though he was looking right through me. He announced to the crowd,
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the final round of 10 for today. Our last 10 contestants will have to create a risotto dish, but with a twist.
The crowd murmured in anticipation. Risotto dishes seemed easy enough. I wondered if Adrian was giving me a break. He continued.
Behind me, you can see 550 bottles of wine, each with a different label and vintage. Only one of these bottles contains the secret ingredient that will make the risotto dish perfect. The name, brand, and color of the wine are written in this envelope.
He held up a sealed envelope and smiled wickedly.
Contestants, you have 45 minutes to find the right bottle and use it in your dish. If you choose the wrong bottle, you will automatically be disqualified. And if you don't finish in time, you will be eliminated. Good luck.
A loud buzzer sounded, and the other 9 contestants dashed to the wine racks, frantically searching for clues. I stayed calm and walked to my workstation, where I started to prepare my rice and stock. I knew it was a trap. There was no way to guess the right bottle out of 550 options. Halfway through the challenge, the others began to panic and grab random bottles, hoping for a miracle. I stuck to my plan. I would finish my dish with any bottle and be the only one to present something edible. There was no chance the others could make it in time after wasting so much time on the wine. With 15 minutes left, I decided to pick a bottle and finish my dish. I casually walked to the wine racks, ready to grab the first bottle I saw, when something caught my eye. A lone bottle of Merlot, the only one of its kind in the whole rack. And not just any Merlot, the same one that Adrian had ordered at the bar and offered me in his hotel room. It was a sign. It had to be. I reached for the bottle, and as soon as I touched it, a loud buzzer rang out, signaling the end of the round. I had won the round, and the others were out of the game. It all sort of felt surreal, to be honest. Beating 9 others to win a round had me thinking I could actually go all the way to win this thing for Rosa. As shooting wrapped up for the day, I tried to look around to see if I could get a moment with Adrian. I didn't have much luck in that endeavor. I only spotted him as he drove past me out of the studio, as I tried to find a taxi back. By the 3rd and final day of the competition, I was running ragged and was close to giving up. Things had only gotten incredibly harder since the first day's challenge. The suspicion that Adrian was playing favorites was quickly squashed. He put me and the other contestants through equal measures of hell. I had baked pastries, made candy, skinned roadkill, and even made a protein bar from scratch. And by the end of the second day, I was almost eliminated as I turned in my challenge dish last. Luckily for me, the round was judged by the viewers at home, and they had become quite fond of me since my showing in the first round. My dish was voted second best of the round, and every other person excluding me, and the owner of the dish who came in first place, Mrs. McNeil, was eliminated. It was now down to me and Mrs. McNeil, a 37-year-old single mother who had been my toughest rival throughout the competition. We had to make bashintang, a Korean dish that I had never heard of, let alone tasted. Adrian gave us vague and confusing instructions, as if he wanted us to fail. He watched us with a smirk, enjoying our struggle. The buzzer sounded and we presented our dishes, which looked nothing like bashintang. Adrian shook his head in disappointment and said,
"This is unacceptable. Neither of you deserve to be in the final round, but I have chose one of you, so I will make it interesting."
He revealed a large screen behind him, which showed a live poll of the audience's votes. He said,
"The audience has been voting for their favorite contestant throughout the competition. Whoever has the most votes will get a small advantage in the tiebreaker. Let's see the results."
The screen shows that Mrs. McNeil had 52% of the votes, while I had 48%. She smiled smugly, while I felt a surge of anger. How could they prefer her over me? Adrian said,
"Congratulations, Miss McNeil. You have a slight edge over your opponent. The tiebreaker is simple. You have to eat your own dish. Whoever finishes first, or lasts longer, will move on to the final round. And your advantage is, you get to use a spoon, while your opponent has to use chopsticks. Good luck."
He handed us our utensils and said,
"Ready, set, go."
We both started to eat our dishes, which tasted horrible. I felt like I was chewing on rubber and bones. I tried to swallow as fast as I could, but the chopsticks slowed me down. Mrs. McNeil seemed to have an easier time scooping up her food with the spoon. She looked at me with a taunting expression, as if she was sure she would win. I ignored her and focused on my dish, hoping to finish before her. But then I felt a sharp pain in my stomach, as if something was twisting inside me. I groaned and clutched my belly, feeling sick. I looked up and saw that Mrs. McNeil was also in pain. She had turned pale and was sweating profusely. She dropped her spoon and clamped her hand over her mouth, trying not to vomit. The audience gasped and whispered, wondering what was happening. Adrian looked shocked and worried, as if he had not expected this outcome. Suddenly, Mrs. McNeil couldn't hold it any longer. She leaned over her stove and threw up, splashing her dish with bile. The crowd erupted in a mix of cheers and boos, some happy for me, some sorry for her. I couldn't believe it. I had won by default. She had been so close to beating me, but she had cracked under the pressure. I turned to Adrian, expecting him to congratulate me, but he looked disappointed and a little sad, as if he wanted me to have lost. I was given some time to clean myself up and get myself ready for the final phase of the competition. I didn't necessarily need all 10 minutes, but I was grateful for the respite. As the buzzer rang again, I marched towards the stage. It was time I faced the final boss and win Rosa her prize. I honestly didn't know if I had the chops to go toe-to-toe with Adrian and come out on top, but I would go out fighting tooth and nail for my sister. The crowd watched with bated breaths as Adrian squared up to me, our faces inches away from each other, with dead silence ringing across the entire hall. Anyone who just walked in would think this was a boxing match of some sort, but it was far from it. Up close, Adrian's eyes were telling a different story. He was very conflicted, but I could see he wanted me, and I could see him fight every fiber of his being to not wrap me up in his hands and kiss me on live TV. Not that I would have minded, but it would have been very bad for Adrian's career. Fraternizing with a contestant wasn't something one could easily recover from.
Ladies and gentlemen, your winner for this year's edition of the Ultimate Recipe Challenge, Gabriel Rodriguez.
As the crowd went wild with cheers and confetti rained down from the sky, I felt robbed. Adrian had told me last night that he would be the final challenge. Even the show's director had given us the rundown on how the final contestant would face Adrian Bennette in a one-on-one cook-off, so why the hell did he declare me the winner? I had gotten my fill of Michigan, and I was set to leave. My victory at the competition was hollow, and I didn't think I wanted to see this place for a while. The only upside was that I was able to win the contest for Rosa. She would be getting her money and her very own cooking show. As I opened the door to leave, I was face to face with Adrian. Apparently, he was just about to knock.
Oh, hi Gabe.
He shakily greeted me. I didn't pay him any mind. I simply maneuvered out of his way and continued down the hall.
Gabe, please wait.
Adrian called out as he gently latched onto my hand. His grip was deceptively strong. I had little to no wiggle room, so I was forced to face him. What do you want? I spat and intentionally kept my eyes away from him.
I'm really sorry about earlier, Gabe.
He lowered his tone so no one could hear him. You're going to have to be a little more specific, I insisted. Adrian once again got into my personal space to whisper into my ear, and despite his warm breath on my lobes doing things to me, the information he revealed was groundbreaking.
The contest was rigged. If I had initiated the final game, you would never have won,
Adrian hurriedly whispered. My eyes widened at the revelation, and it all started to make sense to me. Adrian explained that the competition was funded by third-party investors, so the broadcast company planned on ending the show with no winner, so the prize money would remain with them. They had rigged the kitchen supplies so nobody's dish would come out better than Adrian's. He wasn't on board with the idea, but he was legally bound to them till the competition was over. So why didn't you do it? That was your initial plan, wasn't it? I asked. Adrian ran his hand through his hair before speaking.
It was. That was how it played out in the script I was given.
Adrian cut my cheeks and ran his thumb across them.
I couldn't do that to you, Gabe. Not to you, and not to your sister.
I didn't let him finish. I pressed a finger to his lips. I had done what I wanted, but I wasn't sure what to do after that. One of the reasons why I won was because Adrian decided he didn't want to hurt me anymore, and so he stopped the competition at a point where none could take back their words. But Adrian had hurt me, and I was still not sure how things would go on between us after this. But as much as I knew that, I also couldn't ignore the desperate look in his eyes. If not for him, I wouldn't have won this competition. And while I was not the proudest of how everything played out, I was grateful to him for his kindness. I removed my finger from his lips, and with a sigh, leaned up to press a kiss against his mouth. I don't know how to thank you, Adrian, I finally breathed out as I broke the kiss. I couldn't imagine how disappointed Rosa and Abuela would have been if I had lost in the final round.
Well, I can think of a few ways you could say thank you,
Adrian whispered teasingly, and I had to fight back a blush. I couldn't help but smile up at his larger frame. Your room or mine? Adrian and I spent the next 3 days in Michigan. He showed me the sights, and even where he worked. When it was time to return to New York, he came with me to see Rosa and my abuela. Rosa got her money the following week, and despite trying to hand over the cooking show to her as well, I was not able to because of the fine print of the competition's contract. The show was slotted to begin 8 months from the end of the competition, so Adrian and I spent a lot more time together brainstorming content and prepping. Abuela eventually needed to undergo surgery, which she successfully did, and returned to us better than ever. And as for Adrian and me, we got into a committed relationship that has been nothing short of a culinary venture to this very day. Who do you think would come out on top if Adrian and Gabe had faced off in the finals? Thanks for watching. Consider subscribing to become a part of our Rainbow Force, and stay wholesome.